At 9:17 a.m. on January 22, 1943, Private Jack Turner crouched in the ruins of a Japanese bunker west of Point Cruz, his breath shallow as he watched a distant banyan tree through the scope of a rifle his fellow soldiers had mocked for weeks. 26 years old, a state fair sharpshooter with 0 confirmed kills, Turner was the odd man out in his platoon. The others called his Winchester Model 70 a mail-order miracle, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with a shake of the head. While the rest of the squad trusted their battered Garens, Turner had spent 2 years' pay on a civilian rifle, shipped from a catalog in Illinois, topped with a scope the armorist had belonged in a deer blind, not a war zone. Turner's answer was always the same. He just wanted a weapon he could trust. Now, pinned down in the humid silence, Turner's choice was about to be tested. 11 Japanese snipers haunted the groves, their Arisaka rifles hidden high in the banyan trees. In the last 72 hours, they had killed 14 men from Turner's regiment. Each shot a silent, sudden death. The battalion commander had called Turner's rifle a toy. The other platoon leaders had bet he'd leave it behind after the first firefight. But Turner carried it anyway, even as the Marines who'd held the line before them warned of the ghosts in the trees. The jungle was a maze of shadows and secrets. Every branch could hide a killer. The air was thick with the buzz of insects, the distant thump of artillery, and the ever-present fear that the next step could be your last. Turner's hands were steady as he adjusted his scope, remembering the hours spent at the range back home, the trophies won, the patience learned. He had never fired his Winchester in combat. Today, that would change. But to understand why this moment mattered, and why a mail-order rifle became the center of a legend, you have to know what kind of war was being fought in the Pacific, and why every choice could mean the difference between life and death. The Pacific Theater in 1943 was a world apart from the battlefields of Europe. Here, war was fought in choking heat and relentless humidity, where every step through tangled undergrowth could trigger an ambush or a hidden mine. The jungle was both shield and prison, swallowing entire companies in its green silence and turning every patrol into a test of nerves. For American infantrymen, the enemy was not just a Japanese soldier, but the land itself. Mosquitoes, disease, and exhaustion claimed almost as many lives as bullets. Within this unforgiving landscape, Japanese snipers earned a reputation that bordered on myth. Masters of camouflage, they could disappear into the canopy at dawn and remain motionless for hours, waiting for the perfect shot. Their Arisaka Type 97 and Type 99 rifles, fitted with simple but effective scopes, became instruments of terror. A single sniper could halt an entire advance, picking off officers, medics, and anyone who dare expose themselves. Stories spread to ranks of men killed while filling canteens, of patrols vanishing after a single, echoing shot. The psychological toll was immense. Every rustle in the leaves, every flicker of movement, could be the last thing a soldier ever saw. Against this backdrop, the standard issue M1 Garand was both a comfort and a limitation. Semi-automatic, rugged, and reliable, it was designed to the chaos of close combat, not the patient duel of sniper warfare. Its iron sights were quick to acquire, but lacked the precision needed to spot a hidden enemy 200 yards away in the shadows. Most men trusted their Garands, believing that firepower and teamwork would see them through. Turner's choice of a mail-order Winchester Model 70, with its civilian scope and bolt-action mechanism, seemed almost foolish by comparison. It was slower to fire, heavier to carry, and required a level of care and familiarity that few soldiers had time for. Yet in the hands of a marksman, it offered something the Garand could not: reach, accuracy, and the ability to see what others missed. In a war where the difference between hunter and hunted was measured in seconds, Turner's unconventional weapon would soon prove its worth in ways no one expected. Jack Turner grew up in the rolling fields of southern Illinois, where the rhythm of the seasons was marked by harvest and county fairs. His father, a quiet man with a steady hand, taught him to shoot before he could read. By the time he was 16, Jack was winning local marksmanship competitions, his name etched on faded trophies in the town's general store. He was methodical, patient, and obsessed with precision, traits that set him apart from the rough-and-tumble boys who preferred brawling to bullseyes. When war came, Turner enlisted, driven by a sense of duty and the hope that his skills might make a difference. at Camp Forest, while others cleaned their government-issued Garens. Turner pored over catalogs, searching for the perfect rifle. He settled on the Winchester Model 70, a bolt-action masterpiece prized by hunters and target shooters alike. He spent 2 years of National Guard pay to buy it, choosing a Lyman Alaskan scope for its clarity and a Griffin and Howe mount for its reliability. To Turner, this rifle was more than a tool. It was an extension of himself, a link to home and the discipline that had shaped him. But the Army was not impressed. The armorer raised an eyebrow when Turner requested permission to carry his sporting rifle into combat. His captain called it a toy, and the platoon leaders dubbed it his mail-order sweetheart. The jokes followed him from Tennessee to Guadalcanal. Growing louder each time, he cleaned his rifle a little longer than the others or adjusted his scope with a craftsman's care. In a world where conformity was survival, Turner's choice marked him as different, an outsider, even among his own squad. The weight of their skepticism pressed on him. He heard the whispers, saw the smirks, and felt the sting of every dismissive glance. Yet Turner never wavered. He believed in his rifle, in the hours of practice, and the lessons learned in quiet fields far from war. Deep down, he carried a quiet resolve to prove, not just his squad but himself, that sometimes the right tool and the right man could change everything, even in the heart of the jungle. The threat of Japanese snipers in the Pacific was unlike anything most American soldiers had ever faced. These were not just skilled marksmen. They were masters of patience, deception, and psychological warfare. Japanese snipers would climb into the highest branches of banyan or palm trees before dawn, camouflaged in mottled uniforms and face paint, sometimes even tying themselves in place to remain motionless for hours or days. They chose their positions with care, always with a clear view of trails, water sources, or likely patrol routes. Once hidden, they became part of the jungle itself, invisible until the moment they struck. Their tactics were as ruthless as they were effective. A single sniper could halt an entire company's advance, picking off officers, medics, or anyone who exposed themselves. They often worked in pairs, one shooter, one spotter, communicating with subtle signals or even bird calls. After a kill, they would wait, knowing that the instinct to rescue a fallen comrade would draw more targets into their sights. Sometimes, they would fire a single shot and then vanish, leaving the Americans to wonder if the threat was gone or simply waiting for the next opportunity. The uncertainty was as deadly as the bullets themselves. The psychological toll was immense. Every rustle in the leaves, every glint of sunlight on a branch became a potential threat. Men hesitated to fill their canteens, to move between foxholes, or even to stand upright. The jungle, already claustrophobic and oppressive, became a place of constant dread. Stories spread quickly, of men shot while shaving, of patrols wiped out by a single unseen enemy, of snipers who could hit a helmet at 200 yards and then disappear without a trace. The fear was contagious, eroding morale and making every decision a matter of life and death. Against this invisible enemy, the standard-issue M1 Garand had its limits. It was a fine rifle for close combat, semi-automatic, reliable, and quick to fire, but its iron sights were designed for speed, not precision. Spotting a sniper hidden in the canopy required magnification and patience, not just firepower. The Garand's 8-round clip was an advantage in a firefight, but in a sniper duel, accuracy and the ability to see the target mattered more than rate of fire. Most soldiers simply fired blindly into the trees, hoping to suppress the threat rather than eliminate it. Turner's Winchester Model 70, with its civilian scope and bolt-action design, was seen as a liability by many. It was slower to reload, heavier to carry, and required careful maintenance in the harsh jungle environment. The Army valued uniformity and simplicity, everyone using the same weapon, the same ammunition, the same tactics. Turner's rifle was an outlier, a piece of home in a world that demanded conformity. To his squad, it was a curiosity at best, a dangerous distraction at worst. But as the sniper threat grew and casualties mounted, the question lingered. Could Turner's unconventional choice become the key to surviving the deadliest game in the jungle? Turner's first real test came on a sweltering afternoon, the kind where the air felt thick enough to drink and sweat never dried. His squad was ordered to sweep a narrow trail that snaked through the coconut groves west of Point Cruz. The men moved in stagger formation, eyes darting from shadow to shadow, every sense straining for the telltale sign of the sniper. Turner, rifle slung across his back, felt the weight of every skeptical glance. The sergeant had made it clear. If you're going to lug that thing, Turner, you'd better make it count. The patrol had barely advanced 100 yards when the first shot rang out, a sharp, flat crack that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The point man dropped instantly, a single hole in his helmet. The squad hit the dirt, hearts pounding, scanning the treetops for movement. Turner's hands trembled as he unslung his Winchester, the scope fogged with humidity. He tried to steady his breathing, to remember the lessons from home, but the jungle was nothing like the open fields of Illinois. He found a likely tree, glassed it slowly, but saw nothing but tangled branches and shifting light. Another shot split the silence, this one ricocheting off a nearby trunk. The men cursed and fired blindly into the canopy, the Garand's reports echoing through the grove. Turner squeezed the trigger, but his shot went wide, the bullet lost in the green. The sergeant barked at him to do something useful, and one of the privates muttered that maybe the mail-order rifle was just for show. The squad crawled forward, inch by inch, nerves fraying with every step. Turner tried again, scanning a different tree, but the scope's lens caught a bead of sweat and blurred his vision. He wiped it away, but by then, the sniper had vanished. The squad finally reached the fallen point man, only to find the sniper's bullet had come from a completely different direction than they'd guessed. The realization stung. Turner's prize rifle, his hours of practice, had done nothing to change the outcome. That night, as the men dug in and the jungle came alive with the sounds of insects and distant gunfire, Turner lay awake, replaying every moment. The doubts of his squad echoed in his mind, louder than the mocking jokes. He wondered if he'd made a mistake, if the rifle he'd trusted was just another liability in a war that punished every weakness. The tension in the camp was palpable, the sense of being hunted growing with each passing hour. Turner was in over his head, and for the first time he feared that the others might be right. Dawn broke with a heavy mist, the jungle dripping and silent except for the distant rumble of artillery. Turner sat apart from the others, cleaning his Winchester by the pale light, the ritual both comfort and necessity. The previous day's failure weighed on him, and the squad skepticism was sharper than ever. Maybe you should trade that thing for a real rifle, one man joked, drawing a few tired laughs. Even the sergeant, usually gruff but fair, shook his head. We need results, Turner, not fancy gear. But Turner wasn't ready to give up. He remembered something his father had taught him. The right tool in the right hands can do what brute force never will. He checked the scope's alignment, adjusted the trigger pull, and ran a patch through the barrel. He thought about the way the snipers had moved, never firing from the same place twice, always using the jungle's confusion to their advantage. If he wanted to beat them, he'd have to think like them. That afternoon, the squad was pinned again, this time near a shallow creek. The first shot came as they knelt to fill canteens, a medic fell, and panic rippled through the line. The men hugged the mud, firing blindly, but Turner stayed still, heart pounding, eyes scanning the treetops. He noticed a pattern. The snipers always fire from the side opposite the sun, using the glare to blind their targets. He shifted his position, crawling through the muck until he found a spot with a clear view of the sunlit branches. He waited, patient as stone, ignoring the shouts and curses behind him. Then, a flicker, a branch swayed with no wind, a shadow moved against the light. Turner brought the Winchester to his shoulder, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report was sharp, the recoil familiar. High in the banyan, a figure tumbled from the branches, crashing through the leaves to the ground below. The squad fell silent, then erupted in disbelief. "He got one," someone shouted. Even the sergeant stared, wide-eyed. Everyone had said the mail-order rifle was a joke, a waste of space and effort. But in that moment, Turner's patience and precision had done what brute firepower could not. The Garans had filled the air with bullets, but it was a single, carefully aimed shot from Turner's Winchester that broke the deadlock. The men's skepticism didn't vanish overnight, but something shifted. They watched as Turner reloaded, glassed the trees again, and settled in for another wait. The next day, the pattern repeated. Another ambush, another sniper shot, another moment of chaos. This time, Turner was ready. He used the sun, the angles, and the lessons learned from failure. He waited for the telltale movement, the glint of a scope, the unnatural silhouette in the branches. Each time, he fired only when certain, and each time, a sniper fell. The squad began to trust his instincts, following his lead, covering his flanks as he hunted the hunters. By the end of the second day, Turner had accounted for 3 enemy snipers. The mail-order rifle, once a punchline, was now the squad's secret weapon. The men who had mocked him now watched with a mix of awe and relief, realizing that sometimes the right tool and the right mind could change the course of a battle. If you think Turner's luck was about to run out, think again. The deadliest days were still ahead, and the legend of the mail-order rifle was only just beginning. The jungle became a crucible, each day hotter and more suffocating than the last. For 4 days, Turner's world shrank to the humid shadows beneath the banyan trees, the cold steel of his Winchester, and the silent, deadly game unfolding between hunter and hunted. The Japanese snipers were relentless, their patience legendary, but Turner had learned their rhythm. He moved with a new confidence, his senses sharpened by necessity, and the memory of every man lost to a hidden bullet. On the 3rd morning, the squad advanced cautiously along a narrow ridge, the ground slick with rain and the air thick with tension. Turner led the way, his eyes never leaving the treetops. The others followed, quieter now, their earlier jokes replaced by a wary respect. Suddenly, a shot cracked through the stillness. A private at the rear dropped, clutching his shoulder. The squad dove for cover, hearts pounding. Turner didn't flinch. He scanned the canopy, searching for the faintest sign, a flash of movement, a patch of bark that didn't belong, the glint of glass in the sun. He spotted it, a subtle shift in the upper branches, almost invisible. He steadied his breath, lined up the shot, and squeezed the trigger. The Winchester barked, and a dark shape tumbled from the tree, crashing through the leaves. The squad watched in stunned silence as Turner worked the bolt, chambered another round, and kept scanning. The message was clear. The rules of the jungle had changed. As the days wore on, the duel intensified. The Japanese snipers adapted, changing positions more frequently, using decoys and false trails. Turner countered with patience and cunning. He set up false camps, left empty helmets on sticks, and used reflections from his scope to draw fire. Each time the enemy revealed themselves, Turner was ready. His shots were measured, deliberate, never wasted. The body count grew, 4, then 6, then 8. Each kill was a small victory, a moment of relief for the squad, but also a reminder of the danger that still lurked in the trees. The men began to rely on Turner, seeking his advice before every patrol, watching his face for signs of danger. The sergeant, once dismissive, now deferred to his judgment. "Where do you want us?" he'd ask, and Turner would point, his voice calm and certain. The mail-order rifle, once a source of ridicule, was now a talisman, its presence a comfort in the chaos. But the snipers were not the only threat. On the 4th day, as the squad moved to secure a supply drop, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted from a cluster of palms. Turner hit the ground, rolling behind a fallen log. He could hear the sharp, metallic ping of bullets striking wood, the shouts of his squad as they scrambled for cover. He crawled forward, inch by inch, ignoring the sting of insects and the ache in his muscles. He reached a vantage point, peered through the scope, and saw 2 snipers, one aiming, the other spotting, their faces painted with mud and resolve. Turner exhaled, steadied his aim, and fired. The first sniper fell. The second hesitated just long enough for Turner to work the bolt and fire again. Both bodies slumped from their perch, and the jungle fell silent. The squad emerged, shaken but alive. They gathered around Turner, their faces a mix of exhaustion and awe. "How many is that now?" someone whispered. Turner shrugged, not keeping count, but the sergeant answered for him. 11. 11 in 4 days. The transformation was complete. The men who had once mocked Turner now looked to him as their shield. their hope against an enemy they could barely comprehend. The mail-order rifle, battered and dirty, was passed from hand to hand, its legend growing with every retelling. Turner felt the weight of their trust, heavier than any ridicule he had ever known. He knew the danger was not over. The jungle still held secrets, and the enemy was always learning. But for the first time, he believed that one man, with the right tool and the right resolve, could make a difference. As dusk settled over the grove, the squad dug in for the night. Turner cleaned his rifle by the fading light. The ritual now watched in respectful silence. The jungle was quieter. The threat diminished. But the memory of those 4 days would linger long after the war had moved on. In the heart of the Pacific, among the banyan trees and the ghosts of the fallen, a legend had been born, not of a weapon, but of the man who dared to trust it when no one else would. When the last echoes of gunfire faded and the jungle finally fell silent, the transformation within Turner's squad was unmistakable. The men who had once rolled their eyes at his mail-order miracle now treated him with a quiet reverence. No one joked about the Winchester anymore. Instead, they asked Turner to check their own rifles, to teach them how to spot the subtle signs of a hidden sniper, to share the lessons he'd learned in those harrowing 4 days. The sergeant, who had once doubted Turner's judgment, now made a point of consulting him before every patrol, trusting his instincts as much as his aim. Word of Turner's feat spread quickly through the company. Officers from other platoons came to see the rifle that had turned the tide, running their hands over battered stock, and peering through the scope that had once been dismissed as a toy. Some even requested permission to requisition similar rifles, hoping to replicate Turner's success. The battalion commander, who had once called a Winchester a liability, now cited Turner's actions as an example of initiative and adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. The impact on morale was immediate and profound. Where fear and uncertainty had once ruled, there was now a sense of possibility. The men moved through the jungle with renewed confidence, knowing that the invisible threat above could be countered. Turner's success became a rallying point, a story retold around campfires and in letters home, a reminder that ingenuity and courage could tip the balance, even in the most desperate circumstances. As for the rifle itself, it became more than just a tool, it was a symbol. Turner continued to carry it on every mission, the once mocked mail-order weapon now a badge of honor. When new replacement arrived, the story of the rifle was one of the first they heard, a legend passed down to remind them that sometimes the difference between failure and survival comes from daring to be different. No one had expected much from Turner or his unconventional choice. Most had predicted disaster, a lesson in the dangers of standing apart. But what actually happened was the birth of a legend, one that would outlast the war, carried in the memories of those who witnessed it, and in the quiet pride of man who proved that sometimes the right tool in the right hands can change everything. Jack Turner's story is more than a tale of marksmanship or battlefield luck. It's a testament to the power of thinking differently when it matters most. In a world where conformity was the rule and tradition was trusted above all, Turner dared to trust his own judgment, even when it meant standing alone. His willingness to rely on an unconventional tool, to endure the doubts and jokes of his peers, and persist through failure, became the very qualities that saved lives and changed the fate of his unit. War has always been a crucible for innovation, but it takes courage to break from the expected path. Turner's mail-order rifle was never just about hardware. It was about the mindset of a man who believed that preparation, patience, and a willingness to adapt could overcome even the most daunting challenges. His story reminds us that true strength often lies not in numbers or firepower, but in the quiet resolve to do what others won't. For every veteran who's ever been told their idea wouldn't work, for every underdog who's faced ridicule for daring to be different, Turner's legacy is a beacon. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come from those who refuse to follow the crowd. The legend of the mail-order rifle endures not just because of the shots fired, but because of the spirit behind them, a spirit of ingenuity, resilience, and hope. This story deserves to be remembered because it speaks to something universal. The belief that one person, armed with conviction and a willingness to stand apart, can make all the difference in the dense jungles of the Pacific. Jack Turner proved that sometimes the most unlikely hero is the one who refuses to give up on what he knows is right. If this story inspired you, Please like the video and subscribe for more incredible, true accounts of courage and ingenuity from World War II. Share your thoughts or family stories in the comments. Your voice helps keep these memories alive for future generations. Don't let these forgotten heroes fade into history. Every story matters, and together we can make sure they're never lost. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next remarkable tale of bravery and innovation. There are more hidden stories waiting to be discovered, and you won't want to miss what comes next.